Hello, it's Rob from Van Compass here, and we have a 2024 Transit Trail on the rack here. We're going to show you what they did, what makes a Transit Trail a Transit Trail. So, shockingly simple what Ford did. They dropped everything. When I say they dropped everything, they dropped the suspension subframe, which you can see, main suspension subframes here. Here's the Ford spacers. It's a 2 3/8 spacer, so a 2 3/8 drop. But they dropped everything. They dropped the motor and the transmission and the transfer case, all the drive shafts, the radiator, the intercooler, everything came down 2 3/8 of an inch. And I will show you those components. So suspension subframe, spacer here, 2 3/8 inch. Right there, spacer here that drops suspension subframe and transmission at the same point, 2 3/8 of an inch. Moved up towards the front here. They even made a chintzy little 2 3/8 inch drop bracket for this plastic shield. Amazing. Drop the brake line, 2 3/8 of an inch. We used to do something similar back when we made a 2.5 inch subframe drop kit. Very similar. Where it differs though is they drop the engine and transmission transfer case too. So here's your engine cross member. This is where your motor mount bolts to this cross member. So 2 3/8 drop spacer. When everything comes down like that, these bumper support bars have come down 2 3/8. So it's kind of hard to see, but up at the front here, behind the bumper, they made a bracket so that the front of this drops 2 3/8 of an inch. You kind of see it right here. Because normally this bolt up here would be attached way up to this spot. So there's the drop there. Kind of a big downside here though is the radiator and intercooler came down 2 3/8 of an inch. So ground clearance is the same as the factory van when it comes to like the amount of like the low point of the vehicle. It's still the same. The only height increase you gained was from the height in the tires, that this has a bigger tire on it. Because they dropped everything 2 3/8 of an inch, that's where the appearance package came into play. So normally a normal Transit bumper just stops right here. This is where it stops. Well, they just dropped radiator, intercooler, everything came down 2 3/8 of an inch. So they made the appearance package lower to cover all that. So looks kind of cool, I guess, but it's all just kind of a bit of an afterthought, to be honest, it seems like. So intercooler's lower, 2 3/8 of an inch. There's no protection here, really. It's just plastic. So that's kind of the front of the van. It's got the flares. They're no bigger than factory. There's no additional trimming. I'm sure online you've seen notices about a recall about they have a rubbing problem. Well, it's because they use the same factory fender liner, but they went up in tire size. No matter what, you still need to trim, especially the plastic fender liner. Now this customer, he already trimmed the front a bit because the rubbing was driving him crazy. It has mud flaps originally, but they actually blew off on the very first drive that the customer, when he picked it up from the dealership, was pretty frustrated. So we're gonna clean, this is the kind of the dealer hack fix that they did. So we're gonna do this nicer, clean it up, trim it, make sure it all, get the mud flap back on, make sure it all clears properly. We're gonna be lifting this van more using our topo kit. We're gonna kind of document the whole process and show variations of what's possible on a trail, but we'll be able to get a little more height out of it and actually gain some ground clearance back with our topo kit, which you actually get good ground clearance improvement. That's the front. We can start working our way back to the rear, or really honestly middle and rear. But what's interesting is that they dropped the whole engine and they dropped everything, including the exhaust. So instead of making a new exhaust, they dropped all the exhaust down the same 2 3/8 of an inch. Kind of hokey, because this should be up here and now it's down here. For something that's a premium price point, it's kind of interesting that it's not that thought out of a kit. Definitely could have been some improvements there. The drive shaft has been spaced down 2 3/8 of an inch because like I said, everything has come down. So drive shaft angles are the same as factory. That's nice. The rear kit, identical pretty much to what we offer. You know, there's a block, there's a bump stop drop spacer, and then they use a shock extension bracket. We already took it off because there's no ground clearance improvement with it. So, you know, it bolts on like that. You can see where I already cut to install our 3022 high clearance bracket. So, you know, they're putting the shock mount, lower shock mount point in the same spot that our 3022 bracket does, but just without any kind of ground clearance improvement. So that's kind of it. Interesting solutions here, but yeah, we're just doing it we have it here to figure out what components fit, if we need to make any unique components, and then also just to document the process, anything that's unique for a trail owner. So that's it. For more information, watch our social media or go on our website, eventcompass.com.